Can Northwestern portal up this offseason and get back to where they've been in years past?
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We really appreciate it. It's something that we are grateful for, especially as we wrap up 2022 here in the next couple of days. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can find us. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us there as well. Wherever you are listening, make sure that you are subscribed and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss an episode. And leave a comment. Give us some feedback. We'd love it. We'd love to hear from you and help make the show better as we go. Today, we're going to talk a little bit of the transfer portal. Can Northwestern leverage the transfer portal to get back to the level that we've seen them in the not-so-distant past, winning the Big Ten West a couple times here in the last 4 or 5 years or so? It's something that I think is possible because you know Northwestern needs to add players. And in this time period, a lot of teams, you have different ways to fill out a roster. You have teams like Clemson, Dabo Swinney, who very often just talk about how they build their teams through high school. They continue to add high school level players. Transfer portal, not as big of an emphasis. Something that you're starting to see Clemson maybe kind of dip their toe into now, as they just picked up actually Bear Bryant's great grandson via the transfer portal through Alabama, through Arizona State. So he's at his third school. Random fact for you there. But yeah, I mean, you have some schools that fill out rosters. Vast majority from high school don't really believe in the transfer portal all that much. And then you have teams like you saw Texas State a few years ago, where I think they signed every player in their signing class was a transfer except for one high school player. And then you have Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, the self-proclaimed portal king. He builds his teams through the transfer portal because his high school classes are not that good for SEC standards. He's having to do that yet again. Momentum may be slipping away in Oxford, Mississippi for Lane Kiffin right now. But look, Northwestern needs to add players. This is you cannot rely on this recruiting class. I know it's the best class that Fitz has signed in terms of ranking in the country, but you cannot rely on this class to turn a 1-11 team all of a sudden back into a competitive team in the Big Ten West. You need extra help, and you need it on both sides of the ball. That is something that you know for a fact with the key losses that Northwestern does have. There's holes on both sides that need help, that need to be filled, and teams that are able to kind of marry high school recruiting, junior college recruiting, traditional recruiting with a transfer portal class, do that, mesh those together, have those complement each other, will be able to improve the quickest, get where they need to be the fastest, and probably will be able to sustain it the most. You're starting to see, I mean, even Georgia, a team that did not take a lot of transfer portal players in the past, They're picking up some key spots at receiver, some transfers that I think, according to 247, maybe the top 2 transfer receivers in the country are going to Georgia as it stands right now. I mean, the teams that leverage it and leverage it well can vastly improve in a single offseason, and then can sustain that because you can kind of pick and plug holes with transfers and help fill out what you may have missed on in the high school class. But Northwestern needs help on both sides of the ball. And with more and more starting to come out about True and You, the new collective, I think that gives Northwestern a little bit of momentum while this transfer portal window is open. It may allow them to be competitive, to compete for some of these transfers out there that can help improve this Northwestern roster. You may be able to win some battles now that you would not have been able to win, say, a month ago, before all of this collective momentum kind of got rolling. Because to an extent, it can be getting the NIL momentum going it can become a snowball rolling down a hill. It can pick up momentum. It can grow. It can grow. It can grow. And once you start landing individual players that move the needle, it can help you land other players because they want to play on a team with those caliber of players. But we know that this roster does need immediate help. And the fastest way to add to that roster is through the transfer portal. And that's what I think this Northwestern team is going to have to do. That's what this program is going to have to do. Fitz knows this. I talked a little bit about it at his signing day press conference, that they're going to continue to evaluate and continue to add to the roster, because look, depth is important, but quality depth is important as well. In just a second, we're going to take a look at the offense. And in my opinion, what I think Northwestern kind of needs, what they need to add. We're going to start with the offense in just a second. But first, let's talk about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and really any sport out there. We've got it all at BetOnline. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. And then also, we got to talk about, well, we have to thank you first. Thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's talk about the offense a little bit. Just by my rough estimation, I think Northwestern needs to add a difference maker at wide receiver, one offensive tackle, and then probably one other offensive lineman, and maybe a running back. I think when you look at the wide receiver position, you know Malik Washington is walking out the door. He's a guy who 2 years ago was your second leading receiver, had decent production, pretty good production. Then this past season, your leading receiver, your clear go-to guy when your quarterbacks were in trouble and needed to get the ball to somebody, they looked in his direction. Now he's gone. And there's not an heir apparent. There's not an automatic go-to name that you're like, that is the guy, the alpha in the wide receivers room that is going to step up and take over that number one wide receiver role. Therefore, I think Northwestern needs to go find somebody who can fill that role. somebody who can be a high volume receiver, somebody who can win one-on-one battles with DBs. I think it's vital for this team moving forward. I mean, there's options out there. There's a ton of receivers in the portal. A lot are committed, but there's even more that are not. And the portal's still going to be open here for another, basically 3 weeks. So there is time to lock down some names. There's going to be names that enter after bowl games that we maybe don't know about right now. There's going to be opportunities, but Northwestern needs to look at at the transfer portal, specifically the wide receivers, and they need to go find somebody that they feel confident can walk in and be that number one receiver. Right now, I think they lack it. But I look at a guy like, I was looking through the transfer portal page. You have Arlen Bruce, the fourth out of Iowa. He's in the portal, 4-star wide receiver in the transfer portal as it stands right now. That's what he's ranked. And as far as a transfer goes, he was a 4-star athlete in the 2021 class, a guy who at Iowa, 2021, 25 catches, 209 yards, a touchdown, 9 rushes, 69 yards, 3 touchdowns, 19 receptions, 187 yards, 1 touchdown in 2022. He also had 12 rushes for 47 yards and a touchdown last year. So somebody who has experience, 2 years at the Power 5 level, 2 years in the Big Ten. I think that goes a long way. Somebody that, this Northwestern staff in some capacity will be familiar with because they've seen him on film, because they've prepped to play Iowa. I think that is an interesting name. The production does not blow you away, but then again, and this is a fun theme for me on this show. It's Iowa's offense. What do you really expect? The numbers are not going to be gaudy when you have Spencer Petras at quarterback and one of the worst offenses in the country. He's taken a visit to Arkansas. Can Northwestern get involved? That would be the kind of guy that would excite me if I were a Northwestern fan out there. That would be something that I would look to. Are those kind of guys, are those the guys that Northwestern can get in the conversation about? Can they win a battle with another school, another Power 5 school, or even an SEC school, another Big Ten school, for a big name transfer receiver? Because you can sell the fact that, hey, you need to come and be our number one guy. We can almost guarantee that to you. Maybe you also look at taking another receiver, somebody who maybe has a high upside, somebody who can be quality depth in that room. But then when you look at other positions of need on the offensive tackle, you got to find a way to replace Peter Skoronski. You have the ability to sell offensive line development. You've had you need to find the right fit, yes, but you've had 2 straight first-round left tackles in Rashawn Slater and Peter Skoronski. Your offensive line coach, Kurt Anderson, he can sell that. He can he has a proof of concept that he develops guys and puts them in the league. That would be an intriguing place to look for Northwestern to go get a starting left tackle caliber offensive lineman to help with this offensive line going into 2023. I think you probably need to take 1 or 2 more offensive linemen to solidify depth and experience on that group, quality depth. I think that's vital as well. Then you look at running back with the fact that you have Evan Hull who's going out the door. He's the most vital piece to your offense this past season. Well, he carried the load for everybody. He put the team on his back, team on his shoulders. Really impressive what he did. But you also lose Andrew Clare, because Andrew Clare, I believe, has exhausted his eligibility. So you have a ton of outgoing production. Andrew Clare does not have a ton of production, but it's just a little bit more. And it's a veteran experience role. A couple of guys who were captains. You return Cam Porter, who is a solid player. We've seen him play a significant role in the past, was kind of the number 2 back this year. Off and on effective, but can you get a capable complement? That's going to be something that I want to see if Northwestern can do via the transfer portal this kind of portal cycle. Then we're going to briefly talk about, quarterback. I personally think you should feel pretty good about Brendan Sullivan. I think he played well when he was out there. I think he showed a lot of promise. Unless you can definitively upgrade at that position, I think he's your guy. Is that a good enough sales pitch to one of these receivers or left tackles to come play with him? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But that's kind of my thought on the quarterback position. In a second here, we will take a look at the defense and what I believe needs to happen on that side of the ball. But first, we have a message from the NHTSA. So look, you're hanging out with some friends, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby, you can make it home. It's no big deal. What are the odds that you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Also, thanks for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen today. Now make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's keep going here. We're going to talk defense now. Look, I think the defense needs a lot personally. The defense has not been good the past couple of years. I think depth has been a critical issue. You're losing a lot of depth on this defense as well. You're losing a lot on the defensive line. You're losing A.J. Hampton on the back end. Those kind of losses are brutal, especially when you're trying to improve as a team, and get ready to bounce back after the year that was. You need athleticism on this defense. Let's start with the defensive line. I think you need multiple guys. I think you need a couple starting caliber defensive tackles, probably 2 to 3 total. You just need you're too thin on the defensive line. You had to play a lot of young guys that maybe weren't as ready. And then, you even had some of those guys transfer out after the year. It was not what the type of situation you would like on the defensive line. So I think 2 to 3 guys there, get some quality depth, some experience in that D-line room. That way you can hang with teams in the Big Ten that want to just take a sledgehammer and run the football at you. You can hold up a little bit better with those kind of guys. I think you need a dynamic pass rusher because you lose Adetomiwa Adebawore. He was your best pass rusher this past year. I think you need to go get a dynamic pass rusher, somebody who you can rely on to pressure the quarterback, to win one-on-ones against tackles, to make quarterbacks uncomfortable, to hurry quarterbacks because that'll lead to turnovers. I think you need a couple defensive ends, to be honest with you. And I think I think you got to add four or 5 guys on the defensive line total. Then when you look at linebacker, you need at least 2 in my mind, and I think they need to be athletic because look, you need speed. You lacked it. You need that athleticism. You need that ability to have guys who can go sideline to sideline because there were moments this past year where you got taken advantage of because you didn't have that sideline to sideline speed. Teams horizontally stretched the defense, found the holes, and ripped off big plays. You need some more speed in that linebackers room. That's what I'm looking for there. And then look, I mean, you need a corner. You need a guy who can come in and help shore up that secondary, somebody who I think is capable of starting to replace the hole that AJ Hampton leaves. And then I think one safety. I think a safety who is a quality depth piece, somebody who you can because you were thin on the back end this year and you had a lot of injuries back there. A lot of guys had to get playing time. A lot of guys got thrust out there into the spotlight and wasn't all good. It didn't go well all the time. There's some guys who stepped up and made plays. I think you got to find some pieces to put around those guys. And I think that's something that Northwestern needs to be looking at going forward. That is kind of how I look at it on the defense. I think that Northwestern can use the transfer portal to vastly improve this roster this offseason, and they need to because you can't have too many more 1-11, 3-9 kind of years. You need to get better, and you need to get better a lot quicker. That's going to do it for today's episode. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen today and every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us there. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for tuning in. You can follow me on social media at CarterBird13. I'll see you all next time.